Okay, we're going to be talking turf and trees and turf rebates and project planning. So as the Water Conservation Programs Manager, I am here to help and assist our customers in getting through the process of applying for the rebates and giving information about our rebate program. So let me just advance here. Okay, so we're going to first talk about the turf removal program and the rebate application process. And I'll be moving through these pretty quickly just because a lot of the information is on the slides, on this PowerPoint, and you'll all be receiving a copy of it with all the links that are included. And they're live links, so you'll be able to go right into the links. So here we have very key websites. There's 4 of them that I've noted, is all of our information around turf replacement, drought-tolerant landscapes, design guides, water-saving tips for landscapes, tree care for landscapes, efficient irrigation for landscapes. All that can be found here. So this is our main Save Water webpage, which is, I'm sorry, I think someone might not be muted. Let me just, everyone could please mute yourselves. That would be great. I'm hearing a little bit of background noise. The website, our pwpweb.com Save Water is our main webpage, and you'll find these important tiles, the turf replacement program and our drought tolerant landscape tile. If you click on either one of these, you'll get all the information you need about our rebate program and resources that are available. We have a great landscaping guide that is available also. This is the link to that, and this takes you through different galleries of all different kinds of aesthetics, plant types, design ideas. It's a wonderful guide to help you design your landscape. The SoCalWatersmart.com is the portal that you're going to go to apply for your rebate. And the BeWaterWise.com is a portal that has some great how-to videos and some great information and fact sheets that can help you as you plan your project. So this is our rebate portal, and this is what it's going to look like when you get to it. It's going to be, it's going to have residential rebates and commercial rebates. If you are a residential customer, and I think everyone on this call is, you're going to click residential rebates. And that's going to get you to the actual page where you're going to look here in the right-hand corner. It's going to say residential. You can also go to Spanish if you'd like to have it in Spanish. It's in Spanish and English. You're going to click on rebates and it'll take you to this drop-down menu, and you're going to go to available rebates, and it shows you all the rebates that are available. So there's quite a lot of them, which is wonderful. We're going to be talking about the turf replacement program rebate and that program today, but there are other rebates here that can help support your project. There's rebates for irrigation controllers. There's rebate for soil moisture sensors, for sprinkler nozzles, and for rain barrels and cisterns. All these are additional rebates that you can apply for your project, in addition to the turf replacement program rebate. So I encourage you to take advantage of all the rebates, because altogether they will provide you with a nice incentive for your project. So when you go in, you're going to get into the turf replacement program, and you're going to have an opportunity to estimate your rebate if you'd like to estimate it first. But some key things about the program is that obviously homeowners remove their existing grass and replace it with organic drought-tolerant landscaping. Please note that synthetic turf is not approved as a conversion option for the rebate program. And there's a few key things that each project needs to include, and I'll go into more detail on these in the upcoming slides. But there have to be 3 plants per 100 square feet of your area that you're transforming. It has to have a stormwater retention feature, and I'm going to go through what some examples are of that. And there can't be any hardscape within the transformed area, only permeable hardscape. So if you're thinking of putting a walking path, you're not going to put down a concrete walking path. You're going to put something with pavers, something that when rainwater hits it, it can permeate through it into the ground and into your landscape. And it also needs some replacement and modification of your overhead spray sprinklers. You need to go to efficiency. So that's a key thing. You want to have an efficient irrigation system. And the turf replacement program takes a multi-pronged approach to maximizing water conservation. And because, it's one of the best ways that we can actually save water, especially because 60% or more of water household water use is used on our landscapes. So converting our landscapes to drip and installing water-efficient microsprays and installing drought-tolerant plants or natives will get you quite a lot of water savings. And it will also help your landscape stay resilient as we get to hotter temperatures. Oops, sorry, I'm going forward here. Okay, so it talked about sustainable landscape features. So the berms, the swales, things like that, you have to be able to integrate those into your landscape design to reduce rainwater runoff and to capture rainwater for reuse. It's a new requirement, fairly new. It's been in place for the last couple of years for this program. And to give you, there's some great tools on the webpage that show you can watch a sustainable landscape video that goes through and shows you what we mean by these features. But here are some examples. This will be a rain garden, vegetated swales. Basically, these are features. You form your landscape gently to be able to capture rainwater when it comes, slow it down, hold it, and then infiltrate it. So we want to hold as much water that falls during a rain event on our landscapes, get it back into the groundwater, into our aquifer. Here in Pasadena, that's especially important and critical because we have an aquifer. We pump 40% of our water is local. It's pumped from our aquifer, and we want to make sure to keep recharging that aquifer. So getting as much water back into that aquifer as possible. And these features allow us to do that. It also keeps the water from running off the property into the storm drain. A dry riverbed is another example of what would qualify, and berms as well. So these are all have their own unique features. There's great videos in the portal that you're going to go into to apply for the rebate that will give you more information about how to do these. And there's how-to videos as well. And you can use a rain barrel cistern. That's another, a lot of folks decide to do a rain barrel cistern to qualify for this requirement. And it captures runoff from all your downspouts, right? From your catchment area, such as your rooftop. And they've got to be connected to the rain gutters or the downspouts in order to properly capture the rain, hold rainwater, hold that, and then you can use that on your landscape for irrigation. So here's some general information. The turf replacement program is a two-part application process. So in order to receive a rebate, you first have to apply, reserve your rebate funds prior to starting your project. That is so important. You please do not start your project till you apply and get an email back after you've applied that says your rebate funds have been reserved and your application has been approved. After you get that email, you'll have 180 days to complete the project. And once it's completed, you will then submit your request for the actual rebate to be issued to you. And currently, Metropolitan Water District, which is the wholesale water agency that we receive our imported water from, they're offering a rebate of $2 per square foot up to 5,000 square feet of converted yard per year. So you can do your front yard, you can do your backyard, you can do your side yard, you can do your front yard and your parkway together. And then the next year you can apply again to do your backyard. But just bless you. Just realize that rebates, they're always subject to availability and they're subject to change at any time. So we encourage you to do your highest priority project first while the rebate funds are 100% available, which they are now. And here are some, you'll see these on the webpage on the portal as well. When you apply for your rebate, you have a guide to identifying and removing lawn types. You have information on native gardens. There are videos and fact sheets on how to remove your sod, how to remove your turf, how to do sheet mulching, which is basically if you want to keep the turf there and kill it by covering it with cardboard and mulch, then this is a great way of doing that, of killing the grass that you currently have. And as we go into the summer months, this is a perfect time to do that. And Tim will speak more to that when he goes into project planning. So here are some terms and conditions for the rebate program. These are really important to read through these. So I have them up here. I won't go through everything. I just want to announce some key ones, which is, again, before you begin your project, make sure you apply for and receive an approval to proceed. If you begin it prior to receiving a reservation, you're not going to be eligible for a rebate. And the project area that's eligible for a rebate is defined as the area where you're going to be removing your turf and where your plants will be installed and your irrigation will be installed. You have to have a minimum of 250 square feet of turf removed. If your entire property is less than 250 square feet, then all turf must be removed. We haven't run across yet a property that is less than 250 square feet. So again, you reach the minimum. If you have a parkway, for example, that's 250 square feet, and you only want to do your parkway, that's fine. You can apply for the rebate to only do your parkway. But since there is quite a bit of rebate funds available and you qualify for up to $5,000 worth, I would encourage you to do more. I'm sorry, for $10,000 worth, for up to 5,000 square feet. So we try to encourage you to do as much as you can for that first year of the rebate when you're applying. You can't include any live turf or turf-looking grasses in your project. You have to also include at least 3 plants per 100 square feet in the project area. And any existing trees that remain in the project area actually count towards this requirement, which is wonderful. So we want those trees. We want you to keep your trees, and we want to plant more trees. And MWD is actually going to be coming up in the fall with an additional rebate for trees. So if you're not planning on doing your project until the fall or applying in the fall, know that they're going to be providing some additional rebates for trees as well. So your rebate will actually increase. You'll have the turf removal rebate, plus you'll get rebates for putting additional trees into your landscape. If you'd like to see what native plants are specific to your area, this is a great resource, calscape.org. And then if you want to view a list of invasive plants to make sure that you're not including any invasive plants, you can take a look at those at this site. And then you also want to make sure that anything you put in is permeable to air and water. You want to reduce surface area runoff. So like I said, pathways with any broken concrete, flagstone, anything that allows water to permeate through, and then including a stormwater capture feature, a rainwater capture feature, such as a berm or a swale, a rain barrel, a cistern, or a riverbed, a rock garden. Those all would qualify. One key thing is you do want to put a lot of mulch on your landscape. You want to make sure that mulch surrounds all the plants, and that you put a 3-inch ring of mulch around the plants. You want to include an irrigation conversion, so either go to drip or rotating nozzles or bubblers, micro spray, anything that's super high efficiency. And there's no synthetic turf that's allowed. So when you're ready, you'll go here to apply for your rebate. Okay, you're going to apply for a turf replacement rebate. There's also some great resources on this site where you can look to find a contractor, and they have contractors certified through MWD's Water Efficient Landscape Certification Program. So if you want help with a project and you want to see who's been certified, you can look for folks. These are not endorsed by MWD. It's just a list of all those that have been certified, and you can search by area. So you're going to apply for a turf replacement rebate, and this is what it's going to look like. If you're a new turf replacement applicant, this is the information you're going to enter. You want to make sure you have some information with you, such as your water bill. You do want to have that handy when you start the application process. Oops. There we go. So you're going to enter this in, and then it's going to take you to, you want to be a residential turf replacement program. You're going to start a new application, and it's going to ask you this information: who the account holder is, the contact person, a daytime phone number, a cell number. This is a test that I put in, which is why you see a Gmail here. This is how I was able to get in and actually capture these screenshots. And then you're going to put your mailing address in. And then on the next, you're going to put your property type on the drop-down. It's going to ask you whether it's a single family residential or whether you're HOA, a property address, and then your water agency. You'll pick from the drop-down list, Pasadena Water and Power, and you're going to enter your water service account number from your water bill. And you're going to put your total lot size in square feet. So this is something that you're going to have to measure. And Tim Wheeler is going to talk today a little bit later about how that you are able to measure that for your total lot size. And then you're going to describe the area where your turf will be replaced, and you're going to put the square footage. So if you want to do your front yard first, you're going to say it's your front yard. You're going to pick that. You're going to estimate how much turf you're going to replace by measuring the area that you're going to replace. And again, Tim Wheeler is going to go into more detail today and even more next Tuesday about how that's done. How do you measure? And we have some great, even in this PowerPoint that you'll be sent, we have some great guidance tools on how to do measurements for areas on the turf to get that square footage correct when you submit your application. And you're going to answer these questions. How's the turf irrigated now? What type of controller do you use? How do you plan to complete your project? This is a do-it-yourself or with a contractor. That's what you'll see on the drop-down menu. And then you're going to put which rain retention feature you're going to use. There's a video available here for each of these. And then you're going to choose one from the drop-down menu. You're going to choose, I want to do a vegetated swale. So you'll choose that and you'll put that in. You're going to enter the total number of plants to be planted. And this is going to be really straightforward because once you have the measurement of the area, you're going to, take a look at that, divide it by 3 and know how many plants that you're going to need to put into that area in order to get 3 plants per 100 square feet. And then you're going to upload your photos. So I'll go through and show what kind of photos they're going to look for. You're going to want to take photos of your existing landscape, and they like photos that are taken from a distance so they can see the full landscape with the turf that's there. The turf can be dry, it can be dead turf, but it does have to have some kind of grass on there. And you're going to upload your water bill. You're going to upload a turf replacement plan, and Tim will talk about what that's going to look like. And if you can't finish the application, you just press save and quit and everything's saved and you can go back to it. So if you haven't taken your photos yet, that's fine. Just save it and then you can come back and upload your photos at another time. If you don't have your plan yet done, your hand-drawn plan that shows where your plants are going to go and where your stormwater capture feature is going to go, that's okay. You can always come back and put it in. And then if you are ready and you have everything and you've uploaded everything, you need a copy of your recent water bill. You have your copy of your turf replacement plan, at least 5 current color photos. You're going to upload those docs and then you're going to save and continue. And then you're pretty much done. It's going to ask you to submit. You're going to submit. And then within a couple weeks, you'll get an email that says you have been, you've qualified and you've been approved and they've reserved your funds, and then you can start your project. So starting a project is always, can be overwhelming. So we have Tim here today to talk about how do we do that? How do you plan a project? What are some things to think about before you start? So thank you. Oh, and I'm sorry, I have some folks here that are, admit them. Okay. Tim, I'm handing it over to you to talk about the project.
Yes. All right. Well, tonight we are really going to focus on the planning part, and which is just the sort of the mental work you need to do to get ready for doing this. And it's a lot of questions that you have to ask yourself, and everybody's going to come up with different ideas. So a lot of what tonight is about stimulating your thought process. The design, the planning process is what we're going to talk about tonight. The design is what we'll get into next week. And by design, you see that little hand, drawn picture there, kind of showing what we would call the plot plan. That's where we're headed next week. Next slide, Ursula. So just real quick, and this, not every step is going to apply to every single project, but just to kind of give you an idea of what the different steps of putting in a new landscape usually involves. They're listed there. You start with removing what you have. You address problems that you might have with erosion and drainage.
Tim, you muted yourself accidentally. There you go.
Okay. Where did I drop out? um, anyhow, the demolition is just removing what you got, addressing problems that you may have like erosion and drainage. The drainage is where you would do the water capture that Ursula talked about. How you're going to water your new landscape, and hand watering is perfectly acceptable if you're doing, small areas or not a huge number of plants. Considering what you're going to do for your permeable hardscape, decomposed granite, pavers, things like that. And you work your way towards the softscape, which is putting in the plant material. And then the last step is thinking about how you're going to maintain this. And that's something that's lost on a lot of people, but it's really important. If you're going to be successful long term, you have to understand what kind of maintenance you're getting into. And addressing that during the planning process will help you from making some mistakes when you execute it and actually put the landscape in. Next slide, Ursula. So here's where you get to let your imagination run wild a little bit. And you have to kind of think about what you need in this landscape for it to be considered successful. What's going to make you happy? What are the gotta haves? What are the things that you absolutely have to have in this new landscape if it's going to be worth doing and you're going to be happy with it, versus the like to haves? What are the things that it would be nice to have, but maybe or maybe not, they won't work. Start by asking yourself, why are you doing the project? Obviously, we at PWP want you to save water. That's what these rebates are all about. But there are other advantages. You can reduce the amount of time you spend doing maintenance and the cost of maintenance, especially if you're paying somebody now to come and mow grass. Well, you eliminate the grass and all of a sudden maybe you can do the maintenance yourself, or maybe the person only needs to come every other week instead of every week. So you have to decide for yourself what the reason for the project is. And that's why I have that other with the blank. You can fill that in with, why you want it. And that becomes important because it'll help guide you. What would be the perfect project? I mean, what would you have? What elements would you have in that landscape if it was like when it's all said and done, you're sitting in your landscape and you're looking around and say, this is perfect. This is exactly what I wanted. What are the absolutely necessary? Because very rarely do we end up with the perfect landscape. It's almost unattainable. It's a moving target. So don't feel as though you have to have the perfect landscape, but you should define what the things are that you absolutely have to have in order for you to be happy when you're done with it. Next slide. So one of the questions I like to ask is right there at the very top. What has your landscape done for you lately? I consider the landscape the outdoor room. Here in Southern California and Pasadena, 8 months out of the year, the landscape can be an extension of your home. You can open up the doors and make it that outdoor room. So I think that's a really good way of thinking about it when you start thinking about what you want in your project. Obviously, with the turf rebate, you have to ask yourself, how much grass do you really need? And it's not always appropriate to eliminate all your grass. If you have kids that need a place to play, if you've got pets that have to have an area, you need a ground cover that's going to take wear and tear. Grass is oftentimes the perfect plant for that. I guess the question becomes is how much do you really need? How often does that parkway get used for something beneficial? How often does your front yard get used other than somebody walking across once a week to mow it. So that thinking about turf that way, you can kind of get it down to the bare minimum of what you need. You might not need any at all. And some of you might say, you know what, I really need the entire backyard. And that's okay, as long as it's being used in a beneficial way and, being irrigated efficiently. Having some grass is not a problem. Things to think about to customize it, what style do you like? Do you want it to match your landscape? Do you have a cottage and so you want a cottage garden? Do you have a Southwest ranch style home so you want a Southwestern landscape? You don't have to match that. It's just oftentimes people want to. I live in a bungalow with a heavily Asian inspired landscape. I like it. I mean, it works for me. So, at the end of the day, a good landscape design is one that you are happy with. Don't worry about what other people think. When you start thinking about what kinds of plants you like, think about things like what colors you like, what textures you like, maybe what scents you like or odors that you dislike. Taste. The edible landscape is a great thing, weaving plants that provide herbs and fruit and vegetables into your landscape. You don't have to have a dedicated garden. They can become part of the landscape design. Special effects like night lighting, a recirculating fountain, things like that. There's that maintenance plan again. I bring that up over and over because it's really important to think about, who's going to do the work. Don't install a bunch of topiaries because you were inspired by Disneyland if you can't go out and do the pruning on a regular basis. They'll be wonderful when you put them in, and then they'll slowly become a nightmare. So it's things like that, choosing the right size plants, choosing how many plants. Most landscapes, in my opinion, are overplanted. They have too many plants in them. So think about that. Think about how the maintenance is going to be done. And then lastly, that ugly word, budget. How much do you have to do this with? What is your budget, not only for the initial installation, but the ongoing maintenance? Next slide. So I put together a checklist, and this is just to stimulate your own thought process. This is by no means complete. But when you're thinking about it, this is just to get your ideas going. We mentioned water savings and colors and scents and flowers. Habitat has become very popular. Putting in plants to provide for birds and bees and butterflies. Very popular themes. How can you make your landscape more usable? Creating sitting areas, putting in meditation areas, shade. I can't emphasize shade enough because our summers are hot. And in order to be able to continue to utilize the landscape through the summer months, shade makes all the difference. Maybe you want some plants that are difficult to grow. A lot of California natives are very, very selective about the soil type that they will grow in. And people get frustrated because they put the natives in and they don't last. Well, you can control the kinds of soil mixes you use in pots. So oftentimes we can use potted plants or pots for plants that are difficult to grow, like California natives, or plants that might be weather sensitive, something that's cold sensitive. You put it in a pot, you can move it in the winter months to an area that's out of the cold. So consider potted plants as a way to get around some of the more difficult to grow things. Don't deny yourself necessarily. And And then different kinds of gardens. I'm a big proponent for the edible landscape for fruit trees. I did put lawn for play on there because that is a good use for lawn, but minimize it. So you'll notice in the pictures there, if you look at the picture in the middle, the top picture is kind of a bench sitting there as an area to read or meditate. The picture directly below it, if you look closely, there's a train coming out of a tunnel in that landscape. To me, no landscape is complete without a train. So when I at my own house started thinking about going through this list and doing things that were going to make the landscape something that where I would go out and utilize it more and enjoy it more, it just needed to have a train. So don't limit yourself on what that could be. Next slide. So your timing is perfect in taking this class because it's going to give you basically the hot summer months to do all of your homework, to do your planning, to put together your plot plan, your design, to source your plant material, to even possibly do some of the hardscape work. And by hardscape, I mean doing things like the rain capture or possibly doing the irrigation system conversion, some things like that. Ursula mentioned sheet mulching, which is an organic way of getting rid of turf grass. Basically, what you do is you cover the grass with a thick layer of cardboard, and then you put about 6 inches of organic mulch, wood chips, over the top of that. And what it does is over a period of 3 to 4 months, it blocks the sunlight out, and the plants basically use up all their carbohydrates and they starve. And if you start thinking about doing that now, by the time October rolls around, which is my favorite month to plant, you should be in pretty good shape. It's not 100%. It doesn't kill everything. We have some very tenacious weeds that are difficult to get rid of, but it's usually about 80% successful. Now, having said that, don't get ahead of yourself. If you're going to apply for the turf rebate, make sure you get all that taken care of in your approvals and everything before you do any kind of anything to start taking out the turf grass. Make sure you get approved. Things to think about when you get into the planting season are, the Santa Ana winds, because they can be very hard on newly installed landscapes. Make sure your plant material is available, which is why, during the summer months, you start contacting nurseries and lining your plant material up. And then things like shorter daylight and weather changes. The beauty of planting in the fall is the plants have a maximum amount of time to begin their establishment before the next summer's heat. But also, a year like this year, which was absolutely exceptional, I understand. But if you had put a new landscape in October, you, to this point, probably still wouldn't have to be watering it. Mother Nature has done a wonderful job of giving us water this past winter, and nice cool temperature so far this spring. So we want to take advantage of that. Even if we just have a normal winter, it would go a long ways towards reducing the amount of water you would need to apply for establishment. Next slide. So maintenance. You come up with the ultimate plan. Now you have to figure out how that's going to be maintained. How much time is it going to take? Are there certain skills required? I mentioned topiaries earlier on. Disneyland has a person that does nothing but prune topiaries. That's their full-time job, 40 hours a week, is maintaining all the animals. that they, cut into the bushes. So if you can do that, or you want to develop those skills, that's great. If you're going to have to find somebody to do that, that can be a little more difficult. So think long term about this. How much time you have to do maintenance? Do you have the skill set? Do you have the tools? And what's the cost going to be? Keep in mind, if you remove a bunch of turf, you're going to be not necessarily having less maintenance, but it's going to be a different kind of maintenance. You're not going to have weekly mowing, but you're still going to have to keep up with the weeds. You're going to have to do occasional plant replacement. The mulch, the organic mulch, the wood chips that you put down is going to become an annual event. They do break down over time, which is what we want them to do, because it releases all those organic nutrients back into the soil. But the downside of that is that 4 inches of mulch that you put down when you put the new landscape in, a year from now is going to be maybe an inch or an inch and a half thick. So you're going to have to put down another 3.5 inches. And that's going to go on every year. So that's something you need to keep in mind. Who's going to do that? If you go with drip irrigation, it's very efficient from a watering point of view, but it does require more maintenance. So you're going to have to prepare yourself for spending some more time out in the yard, staying on top of the irrigation maintenance, or having somebody do it for you. And then pruning. Again, you're not cutting grass, but you're probably putting in a lot of other plants that you're going to need some kind of annual maintenance, as far as just removing dead branches and keeping them kind of in control. Next slide. So it's expensive. It's almost all labor. And the beauty of it is if you can do it yourself, you can save a tremendous amount of money on the project. But just understand that if you are paying somebody else, mainly what you're paying for is labor. And that gets more expensive all the time. So just be prepared. Next slide. Budget. Well, you have to sort of come up with a realistic number. When we talk about the plan next week, that's going to give you some really solid things to consider that you can actually price out. How many valves might you need to buy for the irrigation system? How many plants would you need to buy to do this landscape? So that will come out of next week's talk, but be prepared that it changes, and you do have some control over it. I always encourage you to go with, absolutely that sort of that ideal, perfect plan. And if it comes in to be too expensive, okay, now we start to modify it. And there are ways you can reduce the cost of the project so that you can still get what you want out of it, even if it's not that, ideal project. Next slide. So if you're going to have somebody help you out, here are some things you want to consider. Check references. Ask previous clients of the contractor. Ask the contractor for references, and then contact some previous jobs. Find out, was the job on time? Did it come in on budget? Were they happy with the work quality? Were they neat as they were working? Maybe ask for some pictures. Protect yourself. Ask for proof of general liability insurance, workers' compensation insurance, a contractor's license. Those are all things that I know they're formalities, almost the legalese in today's world, but they're really important. especially on really big, expensive jobs. You need to protect yourself. Next slide. Get multiple bids, no matter how nice the contractor is. Get prices from other people. I can't tell you how many times in my career I've run into people that had a problem in their landscape, and almost across the board, the first thing they'll tell me is, well, the contractor was just so nice. And that may be true. Hey, if you could find a nice contractor that meets all the qualifications that you have, perfect. And especially if he's the low bid, and you don't have to go with the low bid. If there's a reason you like his work, his style, you're willing to pay a little bit more because you think he'll do a little better job, not a problem. You do not have to go with the low bid, but do a reality check. It doesn't hurt for the contractor to know that you're checking up on him, and it doesn't hurt just to make sure that whatever contractor you go with is in the ballpark as far as the pricing goes. Because pricing you wouldn't think it would vary much, but it really does. And you have to keep a check on it. If a contractor is really busy and he's not truly interested in your job, he may give you some outrageous number, figuring, well, if they want me bad enough, they'll pay it. And if you don't check with other contractors, you might. So do some due diligence on the contractor if you decide to go that route. Next slide. So things you can do to control costs, reduce costs. Hardscaping can be expensive. Things like interlocking pavers, even just broken concrete, any of the permeable surfaces that you might use for patios and walkways and things like that can be expensive. So maybe you go with just decomposed granite instead, or just use plant material. Use a ground cover instead of a hardscape. Simplify. Look at the plant sizes you're looking at using. Maybe you wanted some specimen plants that were 24-inch boxes or 15 gallons, and maybe you find that, well, I can live with 5-gallon sizes or 1-gallon sizes. Typically, all you're doing there is what's going to be different is how soon the landscape looks established. If you put in small plants to start with, they're eventually going to catch up to the bigger plants that you would have used, but there's a time factor there. It might be a couple years before the landscape looks mature. That's one of the reasons why we use bigger plants, is to get a more instant effect. But it comes at a cost. So look at your irrigation options. Simplify the irrigation. Ursula mentioned early on that, you could do this over a number of years, that maybe you're not ready to do the entire yard. You can do just the front yard, or you can do the side yard. So those are ideas too for breaking up the costs and spreading it out over a few year period, as opposed to doing everything at once. Next slide.
Okay. That takes us through your presentation. The next slides are frequently asked questions, Tim. And so I'd be happy to just touch upon these before we go into the Q&A. And then we look forward for everyone that's joining us. If you want to turn your cameras on, that would be wonderful. And we'll go into, I don't see any questions in the chat. So this is really an opportunity for you to ask questions. We're a small group here, so I encourage you to let us see you and ask questions. To start with, I'll go through some FAQs that we have here. And these are also found on the SoCal Water Smart. So, is the parkway eligible for conversion? Yes, I touched upon that earlier. Parkways are eligible. Can you submit an application for your backyard if you already received a rebate for the front yard conversion? Yes, you can do that. It's one per year. So do your front yard 1 year, your backyard another, your side yard another. This is an example of some of the photo guidelines. When you upload your photos of your existing landscape that I talked about at the beginning of the presentation, as you're applying for and submitting your application, you'll be asked to submit photos. Here's some great examples in green of what they're looking for versus the red, which are, not the correct kind of photos. And they do have to be in color instead of black and white. And these are some measurement guidelines. Tim's going to go into more detail with these next week, but if you're interested, the PowerPoint has this. Everyone will get a copy of this, and this is part of the FAQs that shows you some really good guidelines of how to measure the square footage. And again, it's got some visuals here of how to do that, and then also some formulas to help you find the square footage.
Don't let measuring intimidate you. I know a lot of people get to that and says, "Oh no, there's no way I can do that," and then they fret over how accurate they can be. You need to do the best you can, but don't worry about it. If you break everything up into very simple geometric shapes, pretty much if I'm doing one, I'll break everything up into squares. I don't even worry about measuring a triangle. I just measure a square and cut it in half. So, and same with radiuses, like a half a semicircle or a circle. I just use a square. So, honest, don't let that be the thing that makes you think you can't do this. And I'll go through some more examples next week. But I know that a lot of people, when it gets, there's math involved, they automatically disqualify themselves. And don't let that happen, because it's really not that difficult.
Yeah, and I want to just echo what Tim's saying. And for the landscape plans too that are required to be submitted for the application, they're looking for hand-drawn plans. These don't have to be fancy professional renderings. They just can be a simple drawing or a sketch, and it does have to, it shows where your plants are going to go. It shows where the stormwater retention feature is going to go. And again, the landscape plans are for reference only. It's a program requirement compliance. No one's going to be reviewing the plan and judging it on whether it's like a good plan or not a good plan. They're just looking at that you've included where the plants are going to go, that you've included the square footage, and you do have a measurement, and then also where the stormwater feature is going to go. One of the questions that comes up is, once I've sent in my application, how do I check on the status? So here's just a quick guideline of how you check on the status. There's some phone numbers here too. If you want to check on the status, you can call, you can email, you can use a live chat feature on the website as well. And then next time we're going to discuss landscape design, irrigation, and tree care. And we hope you join us for next Tuesday. We're going to be having these workshops every Tuesday at this time from 7 to 8:15 in May. And now we're going to open it up for questions. And here's my contact information. If you have questions you'd like to, follow up with after, or so you think of something that maybe you didn't have a chance to ask today, feel free to email me or to give me a call. And I am going to say, let's see if we have something here in the chat room. Oh, thank you for sharing your emails. I'll make sure that I get the PowerPoint out to everyone that's here today. And let's see if we've got some questions.
Another quick suggestion: if you're not sure you want to do it or not, go out and take the pictures now anyway. Your landscape is probably looking the greenest that it's looked in 2 or 3 years. So go ahead and take your pictures now, even if you haven't decided whether you want to go ahead and participate or not. That way that'll be done. August and September are a terrible time to take pictures and try to show healthy, green, vibrant turf, especially if you're, being conserving your water during the summer months. So shoot the pictures now. If you don't use them, you don't use them. But if you decide, come August, I think I will do that turf thing. You have them already done.
Do we have any questions? We have Tim here. He's an expert. He's an expert horticulturist, a plant specialist. We'd love to hear from you. I can answer questions about all of our incentive programs too, our PWP programs. Let's see, Janet, did you have a question, or Betty?
Good question.
Kelly. Hi, Kelly. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Oh, perfect. Sorry, I'm somewhere along the line I unmuted and I apologize. I have a couple of questions. So first of all, thank you so much for all this helpful information. It's incredibly helpful. I'm a resident of East Pasadena, of the city of Pasadena on the east side, and we took out about 250 square feet of grass, and now I'm considering the parkway. So we have a mature tree in the parkway that obviously we're going to keep healthy. But I'm wondering if you have any recommendations for what's a good fit, considering, you're going to have maybe people getting in and out of cars, maybe dogs walking through. What do you recommend for successful planting for parkways? And then my second question is, do you have any suggestions for interspacing, interplanting, low water usage, foodscaping?
Great questions.
Well, first question, Parkway. Ursula should have access to the city of Pasadena has some parkway guidelines.
Mm-hmm.
And basically the plants you use in your parkways need to be no higher than 24 inches.
Okay.
And so you maintain good visibility. It's basically a safety thing. You can't put any kind of hardscape in your parkways because it's considered an easement, meaning that a lot of times they run wires or things like that under the parkway that they may have to have access to at some point. So I like ground covers that will take some foot traffic for parkways. So you can use things like Diamondia or thyme, any of the really low growing. And when you create pathways that people can get from the street across the parkway to the sidewalk, guide them by actually creating 2 or 3 access areas across the parkway. And you can do that with ground covers. You can do it with pavers and things like that are removable if you'd rather have something more permanent. And then you can intersperse that with, again, individual plants that just don't grow very tall, don't get taller than about 24 inches. So, even a lot of our ground covers that aren't walkable, typically if we call it a walk-on ground cover, it's something that doesn't go any more than about 4 inches. But you can get things like rosemary that'll get up to about 1 foot. You can get some individual grasses that stay fairly low. And parkways are really, really good candidates for conversion to drip irrigation or the high efficiency irrigation. Sometimes they're hard to irrigate with the overhead spray because they're so narrow. In Pasadena, they can vary from 4 feet to, there are some monster parkways that are like 10 feet, but I'd say the average is probably 6. So sometimes that can be difficult to irrigate efficiently with overhead. So drip works really well there.
And Tim, I just want to add in too, I'm going to share my screen really quickly. So Kelly and other folks here can also see we have some great drought tolerant landscape design ideas for parkways. And it's on our webpage. So if you go, everyone can see my screen here. Tim, can you see the screen?
Yeah, we see it.
Okay, so I'm just going to go back so you can see how I got here. So if everyone wants to go to I'm going to back up one more. So you go to our Save Water webpage, which I had on the PowerPoint, and then you're going to go to Drought Tolerant Landscapes, this tile right here. And that's going to take you to a lot of the resources we've got available for our drought tolerant landscapes. And this one is really fun because we have parkway designs right here. So I'm going to click on, we have 4 different parkway designs. These are great drought tolerant landscape design ideas for parkways. And if I'm going to click on one, it'll show you what it looks like. So here you go. So this gives you some ideas of the layout of the plants for your parkway. This one has a little bit of a walking path right here. That's a good idea. I think, Tim, you had mentioned that, like when people park, you want to create maybe a space for them to be able to walk through on the parkway. And like Tim had said, you can't have the whole parkway with stones or hardscape, but you can have these like small design elements that provide folks with a walkthrough. And this shows you the different kinds of plants that are available. So this is a wonderful resource, and we have 4 of these. So that was the first one. This one, you can see it has like a little bit of a different look to it. And Tim, I know you were very involved with providing these for us. I had a designer work on these. So please let me know if you want to add anything in for these parkways.
The only other thing, you need to avoid plants with spines, spikes, stickers. The park, you can't put your cactus garden out in the parkway. Again, just because that's pedestrian unfriendly. So really the height of the plant and just avoiding things with stickers, spines, hooks. Other than that, you can kind of go with whatever you want.
So these are really, I'm going to do one more here for the 4th one. So this is one that has a lot of ground cover, Diamondia. And then
that's a walkable ground cover, that Diamondia. It doesn't get any taller than that. It grows like carpet. So there's no trip hazard. It'll take some foot traffic. So if you get a lot of traffic on your parkway, that's a really good example of a ground cover that will work.
And then Kelly, you had asked about, did we lose you? I think we might have lost Kelly. She'd also asked about trees. So I do want to address that for trees on parkways. So the city does have specific trees that they provide for parkway planting. And you want to go ahead and put in a request for a tree through the Citizen Service Center. And you can go onto to the City of Pasadena webpage, and you'll find the link to the Citizen Service Center. And in there, you can put in a request for a tree, and they will have a list of trees to choose from, and you can select a tree that you would like, and they will come and plant that for you in your parkway.
The other thing she mentioned was she was like, how to integrate edible plants into the landscape. And there's a couple ways of doing it. One, containers work really well for that. You can actually put pots in your landscape that have the edible plants in them, or you can build raised gardens, something that as I get older make a lot more sense because it reduces the bending over, or depending on the type, most of your vegetables are annuals. So there's something that, typically we have summer vegetables and we have winter vegetables. So you find yourself rotating those in and out. And then things like the trees, fruit trees, they become permanent. And you can buy a lot of those as dwarfs now. And they're basically smaller versions of the large trees, or you can put in the large trees if you have room and you want that. Avocados get to be quite large. They make a good shade tree in addition to providing you with the fruit. Full-size lemon, full-size orange, same thing. They become specimens. But you can get all of those as smaller versions as dwarf also. So
and again, those would be for your front lawns, not necessarily for the parkways, because the city does have some pretty strict.
Yeah, they don't want edibles in the parkway either, along with things with spikes. But your front yard, or if you're going to do your side yard or your backyard, that kind of stuff, where you're going to do turf removal, those would all work fine.
We have a question from Barbara on permits for the parkway. Barbara, you had a question?
Yeah, it's somewhere along tonight. You said something about some parkways you need a permit for. How would we find out whether ours, we can just, like, I have 2 trees already out there. I don't know if the city takes care of them or not. I'm kind of new to my home, so I don't know if I can just. I mean, I want to keep the trees, obviously, the beautiful shade, but work around them.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. You would want to work around them. There's no permit required for the parkway. You want to make sure that there's some great tips, and Tim, you can chime in on this for me, because I know there's some great tips of when you've got established trees and you're looking for what are we going to do around those established trees, because you're going to have shade.
It's very shady. Yeah.
Shady.
Mm-hmm. And so I also have the hardscape. They have like a little path, a little concrete path. That can stay, right? Or do I have to rip that up? Because you said no concrete.
You should be fine with that.
Okay.
What they really don't want people is coming along, concreting the whole thing and just saying, there you go. I don't have to maintain it anymore. It's drought tolerant. You can't do that.
But if I have, like, the other thing is I have. Right.
Well, we lost you there. I couldn't hear you.
Sorry, it was a little broken up. Yeah.
Oh, so I was saying, so I also have concrete stairs up to my yard and then a walkway up to my house. That concrete can stay.
Oh yeah. It'd be fine with that. It's just the parkway, and again, it's because a lot of times there's utilities and things out there in that area. As far as the street trees, and that's what those are. Those trees in the parkway are actually belong to the city of Pasadena, even though you get to water them, and the city of Pasadena should be maintaining them. So if you have any questions at all about your trees, even as simple as what kind of tree it is, so know what kind of plants to choose to go with it, contact the city. They have a city arborist. They have people that will come out and talk. And if you want it pruned and it needs to be pruned, you can maybe get that scheduled. So any questions about your parkway trees, go right to the forestry department and talk to the city arborist, because that's what they're there for.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Do we have any other questions? That was a great question, and trees come up quite a lot. We also want to make sure when doing the transformation from turf to drought tolerant, if you're going to change the irrigation system there, just to make sure that the trees still get water. That's really important, and that they're still getting the deep watering. Are you thinking of doing a change out on the irrigation for your parkway, Barbara?
Sorry, I muted there. You know what? When I first got in here, I had the Pasadena Water and Power came and actually redid all my sprinklers. Like, I have a drip system, but not on the parkway. So maybe because the trees are there, they probably changed the nozzles though.
Yes.
I'm guessing into a high efficiency.
That's right.
Irrigation. Yeah.
Yeah. So to prevent overspray, that's one of the biggest challenges on parkways is they're, fairly narrow, and the sprays usually overspray, and then you get a lot of runoff.
Right.
But they do now have more efficient sprays and one with shorter throws of water. So that's something to look out for too, just to make sure when those are on that, they're not spraying onto the sidewalk.
Right.
And if you do have overhead sprays like that, using the low ground covers is sort of a natural. That's where they really excel.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good to know.
The Demonia looks really nice.
Yeah, I was gonna say plenty of shady ones. I see everybody with sunny, and I don't have a sunny parkway, so I mean some shady ground cover would be perfect.
Tim, how does Carapia do compared to Diamondia in the shade for ground cover.
Oh, it should be fine.
Okay.
Yeah, Diamondia would probably take more foot traffic. Carapia takes a lot. Great. We haven't had any problems with it. But just because it grows a little bit taller and is a little bit more fleshy, the Diamondia would take just a bit more foot traffic. But they both do really well in full sun to dense shade.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Do we have any other questions? I saw that Bill just joined us, and Janet and Betty, you're both off of mute. So if you have questions, please let us know. Hi, Bill. Thank you for joining us. We're in the Q&A component of our presentation, and we have Tim Wheeler, a horticulturist, here with us. So please feel free to ask any questions. This is the time if you've got a landscape project in mind and you'd like some expert input.
Were there any questions on the planning process? Anything that I went over too quickly that you'd like me to elaborate on as far as kind of figuring out what you're getting into with this?
Okay, it's quiet out there today. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. I'll be sending out the PowerPoint presentation to everyone that's here and everyone that was here. We had a few people join us earlier. Let's see, and I'm getting a thanks everyone for all this info. That's great. And I encourage you to join us next Tuesday because Tim is going to be going into design a little bit. Correct, Tim?
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, your homework this week is to really, if you're really thinking about doing a turf removal project, think about what we talked about as far as the planning part. And if you have questions, bring them back next week. I'll be happy to answer questions. Like I said, I know it was a bit like drinking from a fire hose with all the information I gave you. So, if something, you know, some question wakes you up at 3 o'clock in the morning, feel free to bring it back next week and we can discuss it along with discussing the design process.
Well, thank you so much, Tim. We really appreciate your time today. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. And we look forward to hopefully seeing you again next Tuesday. And we're close to our end time. So I'm going to say wish everyone a good evening. And I think we are set. So thank you again.